Hey guys, and welcome to the Bold Believers Podcast. My name is Braden Harris, and I'm going to be your host for this podcast. This podcast is for Christian middle school and high school students. We're going to be diving in to the problems that you guys face on a daily basis, and we're going to be talking about how to overcome them biblically. We hope you guys enjoy. What's up, guys, and welcome back to episode number 5 of the Bold Believers Podcast. I'm here today mixing it up a little bit. I'm with Steven. Steven, say what's up.
What's up, y'all?
Steven, if you don't know, he is our intern here at Grace Christian Fellowship, and so he's hopping on the podcast. Steven, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about your friend group.
Your friend group, friends. Friends is a big thing, and your friends. There's that age-old saying where like the 3 closest people around you, or what is it? It's show me the 3 closest people around you, and I can see what type of person you are.
Right.
And so this is going to be a good podcast for you guys to listen to. And so we're gonna kind of dive into what friends do you need to be looking for, kind of how your friends can influence you, and then we're just gonna kind of wrap up with like how your friends can lead you towards Christ, but just as easily how they can take you away from Christ. And so Steven, I'm gonna kind of let you start and tell me about an experience that you had, maybe negatively with a friend group, and kind of maybe some stuff that you've gone through with that.
Yeah, so in 7th grade, I was dumb and I thought, hanging around the 9th graders were cool. And, the friends that I had in PE class, I thought they were my friends. But in reality, they just wanted to get me in trouble. And there was a day where they're like, hey, let's prank call the cops. And being in 7th grade, I thought that was a good idea. And 3rd period rolls around and I walk in the principal's office and there was about 5 or 10 cops there looking for me, and I almost went to jail.
What did you say to the cop?
I told them I didn't do it, and they
No. What did you say whenever you like prank called them? You were like,
I told them that my girlfriend was stuck somewhere and was bleeding everywhere or something, and I didn't even have a girlfriend at that time.
that's so bad.
Yeah, my friends just gave me a script and I rolled with it.
Oh my gosh, bro, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I thought
bro.
you were just like, knock knock, who's there? Your mom or something?
Oh, no, bro. It was like this whole, like, "Hey, we need, like, the ambulance out here," like,
Bro, where did you tell him that she was stuck at?
bro, I just said my girlfriend was stuck. Like, there was no place, like, anywhere. I remember they showed up to my house and my brother was like, uh, Steven's at school. Like, what y'all doing here?
Bro, that's wild.
Yeah, bro.
That's crazy.
But I told him I didn't do it in the principal's office, and the cops were like, said something on the radio, and my phone started ringing. Bro, I was scared, bro.
Deny, boy. No, just kidding. Don't lie. That's not a good
No.
thing.
And don't prank all the cops.
Do not prank call the cops, please. Yeah, I think there was a time. Well, there's plenty of times. So I grew up in really, really small country town, little town of Sanger, Texas. And dude, I don't say this to brag. I don't say this to, um, like fantasize like underage drinking or anything. But dude, we started drinking in the 6th grade, like drinking,
Wow.
and we would go to a football game. We'd go to this certain person's house, and his parents didn't care, and we didn't care, and so we would drink and we would get drunk, and my parents would find out about it, and they'd ground me for 6 months, and then I was never able to hang out with those people again. But lo and behold, I would lie and try to figure out a way that I could go back and be with those specific kids, um, and it got me into a lot of trouble, a lot of trouble. My mom always tried to find a way to protect me from those things, but I was always so naive, that I always wanted to find trouble, and I always wanted to be in the middle of what all was happening. And so, for me, my friend groups had definitely influenced me in a bunch of different ways. I probably didn't have great friends until I got into college, um, and that's something I kind of regret. Looking back, I really wish that I would have chose um, better friends in high school, because I feel like it would have spared me a lot of heartache in the future. kinda, like, towards my senior year and then my freshman year of college and some different things like that, and so I'd already developed some bad habits with friends, and so whenever I got out here and I finally started getting plugged into the church and serving and doing some other things and making more Christian friends, it definitely pushed me to be better and not choose to live a double life, half in, half out. But also, it was really refreshing because my friends were not living that double life. My friends, like, instead of having to drink to have a good time, we would just have a good time.
Yeah.
And it was super natural and casual, and nobody was forcing anybody, or nobody would even put anybody in the position to like smoke weed or to have a sip of alcohol or to like be in a bad relationship or trying to pawn people off on people or be a super toxic environment. Like the people that I met here were such a blessing in my life because that's what I had dealt with previously, just toxic friendships. Um, Nothing but negativity, like bringing people down, drinking. Like all my friends in high school, they smoked, like they drank, they did all that stuff, and so um, it was really challenging for me to find those friends. And I lived in a super small town, bro. So there was like four cool kids, and everybody else was kind of a nerd. And so like you put up with a lot of stuff um, to be friends with people. But looking back at it, man, I wish I would have given some other people a try because what I thought was a nerd back then, right? Because I was caught up in all that stuff. It was actually good Christian kids living their life how they should have been, respecting their parents, not drinking, not smoking, having their life together, making good grades, and doing all that stuff. And so, looking back, I definitely wish I would have um, chosen my friends a little more wisely. So tell me about maybe a friendship or something that helped you whenever you finally started to realize like, hey, I don't have to live in the world. I don't have to drink. I don't have to smoke. Like that's not what I'm supposed to be like doing. And then kind of tell me like how you came to that realization of like, hey, this is a good friend for me.
Yeah, so, whenever I prank out the cop, it was on my birthday, December 11th, and so that was 1st semester. In the 2nd semester, I've always had this friend, his name was Evan, and Evan was like, "Bro, like, you just got caught up, like, you need to start getting plugged into church, and you need to turn your life around." And that moment is whenever I realized, like, "Hey, you don't need to be doing this stuff to fit in with the cool kids," because in reality, like, the cool kids were the people that were going to church and, respecting their parents and reading their Bible and doing all that good stuff. So, probably after I praying off the cops and in 7th grade is when I started, like, I stopped following the earthly things. But, of course, like, I fell into that stuff in high school after my parents got a divorce and stuff. But, in my youth group, I started hanging around the right squad and stuff and, just started following the right footsteps.
So whenever you got into that, like, got more into that stuff in high school, did you get into that because of friends, or did you get into it because you were just strictly going through a rough time?
So
Like, did some friends influence that?
so they did. I so when my parents got a divorce, I started hanging around with not so good people, and they did influence. They're like, "Hey, like, smoke a blunt, like, that's gonna get your mind off of stuff." But in reality, it wasn't. It was just hurting me more. And, yeah, I would take my mind off stuff in the moment, but whenever I started coming out of that high, I started thinking about stuff even worse, because in that high, I didn't think about anything, and when I came off, the world hit me again. Like, "Hey, like, my parents are getting divorced." So, I was still, like, plugged into my church and stuff, so my church friends were trying to bring me back and stuff, but like I said this last Sunday was I didn't care what anybody was trying to offer me. I just wanted to use it as my getaway, and that wasn't helping me.
Yeah. So whenever you were in that vulnerable spot, I know we were talking about, um, your friends are like, "Hey, smoke a blunt," whatever. Whenever you were in that vulnerable spot, I know you said that you didn't care what anybody was trying to tell you or do whatever, But do you think that if you would have continued to surround yourself with the right people, like, do you feel like you would have continued to make some of the choices that you did? Or do you feel like it was purely based on, like, somebody gave you the gentle nudge and then you were just like, "Oh, yeah, whatever, I don't care, I'm gonna do this."
Yeah, so, I mean, I 100% believe that your friend group has a lot of influence on you. So, if I did surround myself with the right people, 100% I wouldn't be doing those things. I wouldn't have been caught up in weed or smoke or, alcohol. I think I would've been alright
Yeah.
and dealt with it the healthy way of reading my Bible and asking God to help me through those times instead of turning to the earthly things.
Yeah, and for you high schoolers and middle schoolers, because this really applies to middle schoolers too, like, your friends define who you are. Um, and so, like, if your friends aren't pushing you to be better in terms of like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to a party," be like, no, you're not." Right? Like, if your friends aren't stepping on your toes and calling you out of love and giving you accountability and you guys have community, like, then they're not your real friend. I had to learn that the hard way. I had some friends on the football team that'd be like, "Hey, Braden, like, we're gonna get wasted. Like, you wanna come?" I've talked about this before. Um, and I would just be like, "Yeah." And then we would go and we would drink and we'd do whatever. But then, like, on the flip side, I would go to church the next day and I had this one guy, his name was Trace, and he was really like a sounding board for me because he had just gotten done playing football and we were going to the same church. And he really showed me like, hey, you don't have to live that life. Like, Trace was a cool dude, like everybody loved him. Um and he showed me like, you know, hey, you don't have to live that life to have friends and to get to where you want to be. And so, um, for me, uh, having to cut those friends out of my life, sucked. It really sucked.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we want to get into next is how to identify friends that you really need to maybe chop out of your life. Um, and for me, it was pretty simple. It was everybody being like, "Hey, Braden, let's go smoke weed. Let's go like drink or do whatever." I've never smoked weed or had a problem with that, but like we the invitation was always there because they didn't care. Like
Yeah.
half the time, they didn't care that I was a Christian. They didn't care that I was trying to live better than um like everybody. Like they didn't care, and so they were just like, "Hey, come do this." Like whatever, and it was so hard for me because the temptation was everywhere. So the temptation was getting thrown up in my face because nobody cared about who I was pursuing or what I was trying to do. And so, um, Steven, what are kind of some of your red flags for a friendship that maybe you need to consider? Hey, maybe I shouldn't be in this friendship anymore.
Yeah, so, just some things I look at when I'm trying to find friends or whatever is some red flags, y'all, is, how are they spending their life? What are their hobbies? How are they spending quiet times or their downtime? And what are they doing outside of school or outside of their day-to-day life, right? And one big thing that I look for now that I realize, like, that it's wrong is how do they treat other people or how do they talk about other people? Because one thing I don't like is gossip, and that was one thing that I used to play a big thing is gossip. I used to look at somebody and be like, "Hey, that dude looks like, I don't know, a Smurf or whatever," right? And so I realized, like, "Hey, that's not right. We shouldn't be doing that." So, just the way people act, really, like, because in the Bible in, First Corinthians, I believe, it says, "Bad bad bad morals corrupts good character," or something like that, and y'all, if we start surrounding ourselves with that bad, we're gonna end up doing that bad.
Right. Basically, what Steven was trying to say right there is you could be a great person, but if you start hanging around bad people, eventually that's going to pour into what you start putting out.
Right.
And so, it's one of those things where whenever I view friends or I do whatever, like it's super hard for me. I feel like to make friends right like now because sometimes I nitpick people, and it's really challenging for me. So I have to I have to chill out on some of that, but, um, like, whenever we do have friends, like, for one, there needs to be grace, right? Everybody struggles with something, and so we're not saying that, your friend that's struggling with porn or you're something like, help them through some of that stuff, because your friends aren't a lost cause, and we'll kinda talk about that here in a second, but there are some friendships that you need to flee from. And so for me, it's, hey, like, are they blatant? For one, do they go to church? If they don't go to church, man, they're probably not for you, right? They could be your acquaintance. You can say hi to them at school, talk to them in that class, but they don't need to be in your inner circle. They don't need to know what you're doing, who you are, who you're talking to. They don't need to know that stuff. Only your inner circle needs to know that stuff. Um, Two, I would say, like, man, what are they posting on social media? Like, is your girlfriend, like, posting some really inappropriate stuff, trying to get dudes to look at her or do whatever? Like, are they encouraging you to do that? Like, guys, are your friends following nothing but, like, OnlyFans models or, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, are
Yeah,
they are they, like, putting good things in their mind and in their body? Um, and then, like, what are they posting? Like, are they posting on their private Snapchat them getting drunk or them smoking weed or them doing some of that stuff? And so it's like, I would say if you've had a friend that's been your best friend for the longest time and they're getting caught up in some of that stuff, you might stick around and you might try to help them through that. But if you're trying to make a new friend and they already have that problem, it's probably not the friendship for you. And so, um, kind of reflect on, hey, who are some friends that are kind of just like acquaintances in my life, and what are they doing? Examine them, and look at them hard because another thing that I don't think high school or middle school students think about is perspective,
yeah,
right? Like a teacher or somebody who goes to your church or somebody else, they can see what crowd you run with, and then you automatically get labeled.
yeah,
Um, and it's not your fault. Like you could be hanging around a bunch of potheads and you don't smoke weed, but you get labeled as a pothead because that's who you hang around.
yeah,
Perception is a big thing, and not that you need to really worry about what people think of you or whatever, but you do want to protect your witness and you do want to protect your character. And so if you're going to school and you're trying to spread the gospel and you're trying to disciple people and you're trying to be there to be a light, then hanging around those specific people, they darken that light a little bit because you're choosing to hang around people who have like nothing but filth coming out of their mouth, or they're posting this on social media, or they're bragging about doing this with somebody, or um, bragging about like having premarital sex and doing some stuff like that. Like, um, those are some red flags that you probably need to address in your life, and you probably need to be like, man, does this person push me closer to God? Or does this person just drink and pull me down and do whatever? Because ultimately, you want people who are gonna uplift you and push you closer to Christ than you do people who are gonna make you sin and separate you from Christ.
yeah. No, I like how you said that, like, the friend groups that you hang around with, you get labeled as that, because some of y'all know that I'm a PE coach, and there's this one 5th grader, and she's a great kid, but her friend group makes her be labeled as one of the bad kids, and we've had a talk, and I'm like, "Hey, look, it's okay to wanna be around them, but it's not okay to do the things that they do." Because, 1, you're hurting yourself and you're hurting your reputation. Because, y'all, this girl, she's an athlete, she could be something great, but her friend groups bring her down, and the friend groups that she's with puts a bad label on her, and I've told her that, and she's changed a lot. She stopped hanging around that crowd, and she's back to her old self.
Yeah. That's good. So, kind of look at those red flags and kind of really dig deep and see who you're hanging around and maybe what people perceive of you. Maybe take a step out of your body and look in the mirror and be like, okay, who would people think I am by the people who I hang out with? Um, and if there's people that you need to kick out of your life, and if there's people that you need to um be like, hey, it's probably not a good idea for me to be around you or for me to indulge in some of the things that you do or whatever. Stephen, what do you think is the best way to kind of go about that, like in a Christ-like way, out of love, um, to kind of wrap up our time here?
Yeah, so, I've had to cut some people out of my life as well, and these people that I cut out, we've been friends since kindergarten, and I recently cut them out maybe 6 months ago, maybe. And the way I went about that was I just said, "Hey, look, the things that you're doing and the things I'm doing are two complete opposite." And they did judge me a little bit for being a Christian and following Jesus. But I was like, "Hey, look, like I'm still here for you. I still love you. We're still cool. Like I don't want anything between us, but I just can't hang out with you anymore." And just showing them that you love them still and that there is still that respect between y'all. Because just because 'cause you're cutting them out of your life, quote unquote, doesn't mean that you still can't be there for that person. You just can't surround yourself with that person anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to talk about is just because you're not surrounding somebody in your inner circle doesn't mean that you don't have to not talk to them or ghost them completely or do whatever. Like you can still maintain some sort of relationship, but they don't need to be in that inner circle of people who really influence you and
Yeah,
people who truly have a say in your life. Um, to kind of piggyback off of that, like if you have a friend who is struggling with drugs, porn, drinking, having sex with everybody that walks, like just cannot control themselves, and they've been your friends forever. For one, I need you to do something that's really hard. I need you to reflect to yourself, like, hey, am I capable of trying to help this person through this without it making me stumble? Right? So you need to reflect and you need to say, "Hey, am I strong enough that if he tries to go out and if he tries to party and if he tries to smoke weed or whatever, if he asks me to do it, I'm gonna hold my ground and I'm gonna be like, hey, no, I'm not doing this and you don't need to either." Or have you already done it? Are do you think you enjoy it? Like, are you finding pleasure in that? And if you're trying to be their friend and keep them accountable, are you gonna stumble as well? Um, and if you have that friend, and if you have that type of friendship, you need to cut those people out of your life. But if you have a friend who's struggling with something that you have no desire to do and no you're not struggling with, accountability is the biggest thing that you can do. For one, you can pray for them. For two, every time that they're trying to go out or they're trying to party or they're gonna go hang out with that one person, um, invite them to your house. Like, be like, "Hey, let's go walk around the mall. Let's go get food. Let's go do whatever." Like, take them out of those situations because it's easier to not make a decision whenever it's right in front of your face.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like, whenever you're removed from that spot, that situation, or that trigger, or that thing, like, it makes it so much easier for you to say no. Um, and to know that you have friends that care about you as a person and that wanna be there for you, like, that says a lot, and
yeah,
that's really cool. And so there's 2 separate ways that you can go, but accountability is the number one thing.
yeah,
Like, you have to find people who you can be open and honest with and be like, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," because here's the thing, like, you have to reflect on yourself too. You could be that friend
yeah,
that is struggling with all those things, and you need to find somebody that's gonna keep you accountable. And you need to figure out, "Hey, like, I'm struggling, I'm drowning, like, I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff that I shouldn't be. How am I gonna fix this? How am I gonna overcome, and how am I gonna do that?" And ultimately, after that, dude, you have to bring them to Jesus. If they don't know the Lord, walk them through and let them know Jesus. Let Jesus take those burdens off their life, because, we talked about it 2 Sundays ago, you can't do it by yourself. Some of you guys right now are drowning, and you're gonna continue to drown because you cannot do this life by yourself, and it's sad.
yeah,
It's really sad. Um, but lead your friends to Jesus, drag them if you have to, and go to church, right? Open up, be honest, and whenever we have small groups and whenever we have different things going on, here at Grace, man, open up and be honest because really those need to be your accountability
yeah,
partners, is the people you come to church with. And, if you don't at least have 1 or 2 best friends from your church youth group, you probably should. Like, you should probably be thinking, "Okay, who can I go this Sunday and make a friend with?" And make them that accountability partner because that's the biggest thing. Dude, I have, like, 3 accountability partners just right off the top of my head. Like, if I'm struggling with something in my marriage or personally or whatever, bro, I'm calling them up and I'm being
yeah.
like, "Hey, what do I need to do? How do I overcome this?" So,
No, yeah, for sure. Once I'm struggling with something too, like there's so many people that I text or just call, like just to get my mind off of it. Like there's some times where I just get up and go walk around because I don't want to fall into those temptations of stuff that I struggle with.
yeah. You have to remove yourself from the situation.
for
Have
sure.
to.
And one way to lead someone to Christ, right, is act like someone that follows Christ.
That's good.
Because if you're acting like one of the friends that have all the red flags and you invite someone to church, they're not gonna wanna go to church because there's no change in your life.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. You have to be a light to bring somebody to the light, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can't be that darkness, boy.
Yeah.
Um, but guys, that's pretty much all the time we have for this episode. Guys, if you have don't know what this podcast is, or don't know who we are, or don't know um anything about what we do here at Grace, my name is Braden Harris. I'm the student pastor, and this is my boy Steven. He's our intern, and we do ministry. And guys, we are here for you. We love you. We care about you. That's why we dive into some of these deeper topics and some of the harder topics like friendship and kind of when you need to cut people out of your life and some different things like that. And so, um, but if you've never been to church, or if you don't know who Jesus is, or if you want to learn more just about what we have to say about friends or anything else like that, guys, 3450 Billy Hex Road, Sunday nights, middle school is at 5 p.m. High school starts at 6:15 p.m. We have Encounter, which is our youth night. We would love for you guys to come. Love for you guys to come hang out. And yeah, Steven, you got anything else?
Yeah, if y'all need anybody to talk to, we're here. We could be y'all's accountability partner
Yeah,
because we're here for y'all and we love y'all.
we are. We are here. But guys, I sadly won't be here for Encounter this week. My brother's getting married. Whoop whoop. So that boy Steven's gonna be running the show. So y'all make sure you show up, support Steven.
Hey, let's go.
But we'd love to see you guys there.